Welcome to Three, a show about Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, and part of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. Roger Federer has fallen in the quarterfinal at Wimbledon 2021 to Hubert Hurkacz. Novak Djokovic is moving on to the semifinal after a straight set victory over Marton Fucsovics. Well, look, Roger Federer has lost in majors before. We're going to start with him, but the manner in which he lost made this pretty unique, obviously. His age kind of compounds that feeling of a little bit of doom, I'd say, especially in the third set when he gets bageled in the third set for the first time since the Roland Garros final in 2008 against Nadal. This one, again, far different circumstances, and I don't remember him losing a match at a major this comprehensively since Cilic at the 2014 U.S. Open. I mean, this was a very startling way to lose, not necessarily the fact that he lost.
Well, Federer, it seemed, gets off to the slow start, and we were noting how he was kind of a little slow out of the gates, and then he's up 4-1 in the second set. So, okay, he's going to be kind of parity here, and we're going to kind of reset and see what happens in the third. And then it just kind of went a little sideways, particularly that tiebreaker was really strange. Some shots he missed that he never missed. 2-all, he tries to swing volley, hits into the net. Then on the next point, he slips and whiffs. I mean, and then from there, and then he got back a little in the tiebreak, but everything kind of unraveled once he lost that tiebreak.
Look, Federer brought me personally and fans all over the world a lot of joy in this tournament. It was a fun ride. I enjoyed it very much. It was nerve-wracking at times, and he enjoyed it himself. He said so. So if people are enjoying him and he's enjoying it, then job well done. I mean, way to go. And he made the quarters. And he even said in the press conference he was kind of surprised that he did that well. He's still in his mind and kind of rehab. And he's not going to retire. He just said it. So I know there are a million people talking about that they think he should retire. But guess what? He doesn't care what you think. And he's not going to retire. So sit with that, okay? Get ready for more of us talking about his matches, including the Olympics and the U.S. Open, because he's just not done yet. And I love that. I love that. He writes his own script. Roger Federer writes his own script.
Spot on. And in an individual sport, why not? And I've been through this so much with so many players. I've seen this happen, and people's demand for it has to do with their connection to mortality. They don't want to see Superman eroding. And you made a great point, Amy, about how neat it was. Yeah, Federer got to the quarters at the age of 39. That's a pretty good effort to get that far. Of course, the thing is the standard he set. The last time he was here, he had 2 championship points. So it's different than the old warhorse having one last run. So the expectation and hope that, wow, could he win it this year? Could he get to the finals, semis? And okay, so was the quarters. And he said he and his team were pretty happy about that, though. Of course, you still got to think he was not pleased with the flow of this match. No one wants to lose a match in straight sets and have the final set be a bagel.
Well, the Roger Federer media team should cut up what Amy just said and like put it in their next promo. Like that was a WWE level promo there, Amy. That was I enjoyed that a lot.
AL, sit with it. That's right. That's right. That Roger's going to be, he's going to let us know about the Olympics possibly and other things, but he's going to do as he does. But again, this match, it was a little frustrating to watch him stagger and stumble at times. So he didn't exactly go out on his shield the way you'd want to see some kind of 6-4 in the fourth set or fifth set in this drama. It just kind of like went on out.
Well, speaking of stumbling and slipping, I think we probably all agree that the slip in the tiebreak when he had the sitter was just, the capper sort of a very frustrating day for him. I mean, it was windy. And look, I know professional tennis players are supposed to be able to deal with wind, but he was very aware of the wind. Whether he was in it to his face or to his back, it was something that hadn't really been a factor until that point in the tournament. And then he slips on the grass, and it just kind of, maybe in his mind, he thought to himself, "This wasn't my day," and then it just snowballed from there.
That slip that you're talking about, when he had a high volley that looked like an easy put away and he never even was able to get a racket on it, that came on the heels of a string of points. Joel mentioned the forehand swing volley netted, but at 1-all, he had a very close range forehand pass. And maybe it's because Hubie Hurkacz is like too nice a guy, but that ball should have gone at Hubie's chest very fast and hard. And instead, it was massaged down the line so Hurkacz could extend his arms, and he just finished a neat backhand volley winner. There were so many points early on in that tiebreak where really Federer should have had a massive lead early on there, and he didn't. But I think also kind of the point that is being made is pre-tournament, if you said, Federer, you're going to lose in the quarterfinal, he takes it. You just don't know if he's going to take it. Well, not only are you going to lose in the quarterfinal, but you're going to get bageled in the third set. Is that accurate, you think?
Well, what's the opposite of not taking it? Saying I want more?
Well, saying like I expected to do better than that. But maybe not, because I don't know.
I don't know. That's kind of interesting things about outcomes and expectations and desires. Yeah, look, you can always in the end say, yes, I'm glad I did this and I'm happy. I don't think he did all of his training, his rehab, his clay schedule, his withdrawal from the French Open to be content with exiting one round further at Wimbledon. I don't think that doesn't mean he's dissatisfied, because the genius of Roger Federer is his content, is his state of contentment with what the world is. So it's not like he leaves here thinking, oh my God, I can't believe he just, okay. I mean, he takes a pragmatic view. He's obviously maybe a little upset about things, like anyone would be after us, but he's always looks at things kind of tranquilly and realistically. So, but I'm not so sure he would have been doing cartwheels if you told him he's going to get to the last 8 here.
Well, Gill, I think you brought up a good point about that should have gone at Hubie's chest. There were several. Hurkacz passed very well today. I thought he had dozens of great passing shots. And there were times when I was like, really, Roger, that's your approach? I mean, because you're going to have to do more than that. Or they were talking about it on the US ESPN telecast that, okay, you can do a swing volley there, but Brad Gilbert said, if you do that, just know you're giving the guy time to do something with that. So dovetailing with that, the one of my favorite quotes from the Federer press conference was, quote, "I have a lot of ideas on the court, but sometimes I can't always do what I want to do." So as he continues this process of coming back from taking so much time off, I think his mind is, and it's an aging mind, it is, but I think he's still trying to sort out in the moment exactly what he wants to do and what he can do.
And if the body cooperates, I mean, that very point you mentioned, Gill, to get a little granular on that, he hits the pass and Hurkacz hits a backhand volley angle. It wasn't a total winner. Federer had a chance at it, but he wasn't quite as agile. And is that just the moment? Or is that when we think, well, gee, 5 years ago is Roger on that shot and then he knifes it down the line? And this gets to the whole physical aspect of the player aging and their agility.
His movement looked worse today for me than it has, than it had in the previous round against Norrie and against Sonego. I just thought he looked slower today. And maybe that's just a function of, at that age, sometimes you wake up and your body doesn't have it that day.
It's also a function of playing a top 20 opponent. He was against, I mean, this is a higher level. I mean, this guy won Miami. I mean, this is against a significantly higher level opponent than anyone he's played this whole Wimbledon.
Right.
So
yeah. I mean,
a little that's going to make you look a little slower. Not because he's going to do things for you. He's going to compromise. I mean, like Amy said, he was moving so well and hitting quality passing shots and all these things. I mean, he was pretty focused from start to finish.
I guess the question going back to the big picture about Roger's level, and a lot of people take this match and how he lost and kind of say, okay, well, this shows, and Roland Garros showed that Federer will never contend for slams again. And obviously that could be true or it could be untrue. Nobody can tell the future. But I don't think it's unreasonable to look at this and think, well, this is still a Roger Federer who had less than ideal preparation coming into Wimbledon, is pretty much freshly off just his rehab and being ready to play. He's only been really touring post knee surgery. If you get rid of that weird Doha tournament that he played and then didn't play afterwards, if you get rid of that, he's been touring for about 6 weeks now. So that's not a very long time. And it's not unreasonable to think that maybe in 2022, we don't get a worse version of Roger Federer because he's a year older. We get a better version of Roger Federer because he's got his rhythm and he has some matches under his belt.
Maybe. I mean, I see that scenario, and maybe if you really want to look down the road, because he's just said he's going to figure out soon about the Olympics. You got that U.S. hardcourt. Maybe the prep for 22 begins in some form of the fall in Europe, and he gets in some comfortable indoor matches in the places like Vienna and Basel, and that lays the groundwork for what could come in 22. But that's a ways away. So in the meantime, we've got to think, how does he then manage his summer? Does he, whether it's the Olympics and then the 2 pre-open North American tournaments, if he necessarily plays both? I mean, it's just a lot of stuff. It's so tricky in this sport because you need to have those matches, but you don't have too many of those matches. You don't want the body to break down.
What do you think? How would you manage the summer if you're Roger Federer, Amy?
I would play because, he says that he wants to be a better player. He needs to figure out how to get in better shape. It's hard to believe, but that's what he's saying. And twice he said, I need to find out how to be more competitive. He used that phrase twice. So, if that's really the case, then play the Olympics. Although I understand, having a family myself, I understand that it's tough to just go away and be away from your family in some sort of strange bubble where you can't be around your loved ones for that amount of time. And it's nervy over there with the situation with the pandemic. But if he feels up to it, I'd love to see him play and, maybe play a couple of one big hard court, Cincinnati, what have you.
See, excuse me. I think what he means by shape, I think he means match shape. I don't think he means physical. I think he just means match shape, because I think every player needs to have particularly Federer, like he talks about those array of tools. He needs to. It's kind of like a multifaceted offense. He has all the parts and pieces going. So those movements like that easy volley. It's not a swing volley. It's a drop volley. That passing shot, you crack it right at the guy. All those kind of things. There's so much fast-paced instinct to Federer, probably more than any of our three. He's the one who relies on most quick second decision-making. Because he
was asked, did you have enough matches or match prep to get you into match shape? And he said, yeah, I did. That wasn't it.
Yeah, but I don't think he would have said no. I don't think he would have said no, even if it was true.
But he did say better shape. So take that, take from it what you will.
Well, and I think the summer is really interesting. At one level, I bet in Federer's camp, he wishes, I wish there just wasn't the Olympics at all, so I could just kind of like do a little North American focus, play 2 of those events, get in 6 matches, North America, point towards the US Open. Now there's the Tokyo aspect, which is highly appealing to him on many levels, including commercially. That's a really interesting thing, but the factor of Tokyo and the pandemic. So I think you're onto it, Amy, where it's Tokyo, it's one North America, TBD, probably Cincinnati, where he's won a bunch of times, though he's done well in Canada too. And then, okay, let's see how we can bring it to New York. Yeah, I I think that's the scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. The Olympic decision is interesting because you do have the family situation. The bubble is so uncomfortable for people. Like, we see Serena Williams, for example. To me, the Olympics for her, non-starter. Like, she's just not going to leave her family for that. So for Federer, there might be those kinds of considerations, maybe on a less extreme level than Serena. But on the other hand, I think there are strictly tennis reasons that do make the Olympics very appealing. Good conditions for them, best of three, commercial reasons, right? So I do think that there's some things there. For the retirement thing, I think some people assume that if Roger isn't going to get back to a level where he's contending for majors, then he's going to stop playing tennis. I don't think that's a fair assumption. Do you agree? I don't think that's fair.
I agree with you, because I think that's always, I've heard this for 40 years with number ones. When someone's been a number one and they've held number one ranking for triple digit weeks, how could we even imagine them wanting to play if they can't be a contender? And in their mind, they're always going to be a contender because they've been a factor. So they're going to do it and they're going to play. And it becomes a lot of this kind of like, sports radio talk, which is, I guess, what we could do too. But it's just, I think he's going to play as long as he, like Amy said at the beginning of the show, as long as he enjoys playing and also putting in the work to be ready to play. And that's something he never seems to back off of. I mean, Pete Sampras was wrung out. He had enough of practice, enough of training, enough of that. Okay. So that what he knew it, and he knew you'd be cheating the game if you showed up at Wimbledon thinking you could just roll out and start playing. Federer doesn't back off that. So yeah, he's going to do what he does. And the great thing about a sport like this, the marketplace tells you, the game starts to tell you, if the ranking, the losses, these situations. And we know that Federer is going to, when he decides to end it, it will be extremely well thought out.
He could actually take a page from Venus Williams, because after a lot of talk that Venus Williams needs to just stop, she just was like, no, I'm not stopping. And she just, she continues to qualify for tournaments. Yeah, maybe she'll take some hits because the protected ranking won't be into play anymore. But she just continues to play, and all that talk has died down now. Now we're finally at a point where when we see Venus Williams enter a tournament, we're happy to see her. And it's less about when are you going to give it up, I hope that the constant pressure of turning older, and he is at that point where you're at the decade marker, and the decades are they're tough, but if you can in your mind be right with it and kind of drown out what people are saying around you about that decade marker, then you'll be fine. And he may actually find some freedom after he goes ahead and turns 40 and then has some successful matches and tournaments and that kind of thing.
Well, if no one is better at tuning out everything than Roger Federer. I mean, that's why he's so downstream when you see him at tournaments everywhere. And yeah, a little bit. On the other hand, it's a little bit like that thing I heard someone say. So the years have been kind to me overall, but the days and the weeks, not always so. I mean, so Federer of late, I mean, yeah, he knows in the big picture how glorious it's been. And a lot of this has been just gravy. He's been saying that for 4 or 5 years now, since the 2016 injury and the comeback. So we'll see. I mean, it's going to be, of course, it's going to be interesting. I think I'm really curious to see where he goes on the Olympics, how he plays that one out. Because I'm certain he will play at least one pre-US Open tournament. Now the question is what he opts to do with the Olympics, given the significance of that to him and the world and his global sense of himself too.
Yeah. Again, Roger Federer says he's going to have a conversation with his team. He never says, by the way, I need to make a decision. It's always, we're going to have a meeting. The team is going to get together. Never, I got to decide, which I find interesting.
He's not going to give anyone a Severin package. That's a bad pun. He's going to just huddle. I mean, and it's a great team. I mean, him and his manager, Tony Godsick, and Lubacek, and probably just maybe even his parents out, and Merck, of course. Just, I think Federer has that really, it's very smooth.
Well, quietly, Novak Djokovic is in the Wimbledon semifinal, his 10th semifinal at the All England Club. Really, really large, healthy number. And it's straight sets today against Marton Fucsovics. I mean, I think it was the most difficult match he's had. How's that statement? It was straight sets, and the first round was 4 sets with Draper, but I think this was the most difficult test, even if it was relatively comfortable.
Yeah, some good rallies, some exertion, some things. And in the meantime, it is kind of like an interesting day for our 2 members of the 3 who are here. I mean, lots and lots around Federer. We talked about it. And then Novak just, okay, yeah, straight sets, good rallies, mild exertion, onwards to the semis.
I feel like the rest of the world was not watching the same match that I was watching, because I thought it was a bravura performance from Novak. I mean, it reminds me a lot. Early in my career, I covered golf a lot and was there for the heydays of Tiger Woods. And the more dominant you are, there's some sort of bias, the more dominant people expect you to be. And they just get it in their head that if you are not stepping up every single time, then there was a hitch, or you're not in top form. That's what I saw on Twitter. Like, even some of his super fans, Novak is not in top form to be TBH, to be honest. I thought he was in top form. And people have to remember, like, I just played a match the other day. First set, I went up a couple of breaks, and then I thought, I'm up a couple of breaks. I think I'm going to try and work on some different aspects because I've got some cushion here. And that may be what he was doing. It might have been so easy for him
in the first set. Set, okay. Novak was up 5-love, and then
right. And then I got a text from you guys saying a bit of a hiccup there. And I'm thinking to myself, he just won the set 6-3. It's like, we just expect him to be this machine. And the better he does, the more we expect that. But he may be playing a different game. And I thought that he was just pretty much toying with Fucsovics.
Yeah, but you surely don't think if someone's up 5-0 in a Wimbledon quarter that they decide they may attempt some things, but do you think they don't want to attempt these things and suddenly have it be 5-3? I mean,
I actually, if you're Novak Djokovic, I actually do think you might try some drop shots or do some things to get the feel of certain things that you might not in what you think is going to be a super tight match. I think actually he might have been trying some different things. Well,
that's the interesting thing about Novak. It's interesting. Novak has won with no one has everyone's skill set is narrow compared to Federer. So when Federer is doing these different things, they're just seen as part of the Federer core operating system. So you might be onto something where Novak has fewer core competencies than Roger. So now he's doing stuff that's a little beyond it. And you're right. And so then I'm getting kind of, oh, Novak, what are you doing? Like, we'd never say that about Roger. There's nothing Roger does. Roger can hit inside out tops and backhands and just adds. Look at the Roger artistry. We're never thinking that he's experimenting. He's just being Roger. But you're right, Novak. Hey, why aren't you just hitting cross court and down the line like usual? So maybe that's something. I'm sure he didn't mean for it to get to 5-3, but then he closed it out pretty simply, and the next 2 also. So that's
and nowhere do you sort of, as you guys know, because you play, nowhere do you sort of like mess around with things than on your serve. Like, you're like, well, what if I tried serving up the tee, even though normally conventional wisdom says go out wide here? Or, what if I serve and volley on 30 all? Normally I wouldn't do that, but so you start playing around, but then if it gets dicey and it doesn't work, and then you go, nope, zip it up. Now I'm going to shut it down. And I do think that somebody as great as Djokovic has the ability and the power to do that.
Well, right. And the serve is the shot that allows you to most command start the point in a way that's, the return reacting. You can experiment with, you can say you want to experiment with things with return, but you're kind of at the mercy of the server. Whereas the serve, you can say, yeah, I'm up 4-0. But I don't know. That's an interesting thing. I mean, I'm one of the reasons I like Ash Barty a lot is because I like, and I do this too, the toothpick by toothpick assembly. I try not to get, but I experiment. My game has a lot of experiment throughout, but then not experiment, diversity. But I'm not quite sure I'm going to get too adventurous. Like if I'm serving at 4-0, I just want to get that set done by what I've been doing to reach 4-0.
Mm-hmm.
Stay on it. I'm not going to suddenly pull out the start doing wheelies.
Yeah, and then there are times and places to do that, but again, we aren't him. So I guess my point is, let's not all assume that just because we perceived some hitches or hiccups that this wasn't a totally dominant straight set performance.
Yeah,
Even coming off the court, the first question to him is, wow, no, is not, hey, you're into the semifinals. The first question to him is, he made you work hard.
Well, he did.
Dude, I just had a straight sets win to make the semifinals.
Okay,
I dominated the guy.
But he did. There were some good, arduous rallies in that match. But
okay.
Still.
First of all, Fucsovics played better after he was down 5-love because the stress was immense early on for him, and he did not play well. So there's two players in the match. Let's not just talk about Novak. Fucsovics raised his level, and then Novak closed it out. But I think for the rest of the match, here's like the juxtaposition. I think when people say, well, Novak didn't play as well in this match, I get that. I saw that as well, but it was really windy. So Fucsovics didn't play as well in this match either. The conditions were not ideal. I think the players, for as well as they move, both of them, for how well they cover the court, they actually force each other into missing and making errors. But ultimately, I thought it was Novak versus the wind and Fucsovics for a little while. And that just made it a more difficult match for him. But he figured it out. He looked a lot better playing against the wind for some reason. Lots of drop shots, lobs, better against the wind. Footwork was better. But with the wind, I think it took him a while to kind of figure out his footwork and his timing. When it counted, 4-all, second set, he gets the break. He gets it done.
Well, and the wind, I don't know if you guys, I think it's much easier to play against the wind than with the wind. Much easier to play against the wind because you can, with the wind at your back, a lot of control issues. Not all of us do as much topspin as you go.
Yeah. Well, I heavy topspin or big servers. I think a big server wants to play with the wind.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I like to serve with the wind, but pretty much everything else I like to do against the wind because you can swing as hard as you want, basically, as long as you.
Yeah, and the things like drop shots, like if you the wind at your back, the drop shot is like, sorry, not happening. Volleys, I've had a lot of interesting dialogue. Some people think it's great to volley the wind because the passing catch are harder. Someone else told me harder to volley with the wind because the precision is off, so you can't volley as much to the corners. And so there's different things. And Gill, you and I exchanged a text during it about of our three. Did you think Novak is the worst of the wind? Well, first, Nadal is unquestionably the best of the three.
Agreed.
The wind.
Agreed.
Unquestionably, the margin, the suffering, the whole thing. He might be the best wind player ever. Whereas I'm not sure. What do you guys think, Roger or Novak on windy days?
I think Roger did not do anything in his favor today.
Not today. No, I know today, right? Certainly not today, but I just mean overall. I think because of style, footwork, I would think Novak would be better at than Roger, but I haven't looked at all the record, but I think Novak's game can lend itself to more wind. Roger's the one with more precision and angles and things he wants to do.
but I found the Federer serve is wind proof, and I
Yeah.
think that's been the thing that stuck out to me throughout his career more than anything, is that like the wind's gusting 20 miles per hour and you're serving 20 aces while the other player's double faulting. I've seen that act a couple times. And then wind is about footwork. It's about moving to the ball and making those little adjustment steps. And I think that's what Novak really had to work on when he was playing with the wind and the ball was stopping up. And that's when you saw kind of the off balance ground strokes for him. And I think Roger's just a little bit better with his feet. And I don't think I think Novak prefers the quiet conditions compared to everyone. Everyone prefers quiet conditions except Nadal. I think Novak versus Federer, slight edge to Federer.
Okay.
I don't want to have recency bias, but I think this was Federer's problem today. Like, he had a ton of forehand errors, and it was because he wasn't, I mean, they said on the telecast, I think James Blake said it, it's because he wasn't taking those small adjustment steps. So the wind
Right.
really surprisingly did Federer no favors today.
Yeah, absolutely. Novak gets Denis Shapovalov next. He's the a player who has way bigger weapons than anyone Novak has had to deal with thus far. So let's talk about him. It is a 6-0 head-to-head for Novak, but I think at this point it's a little bit misleading because they played 1, 2, 3, 4 times in 2019. Novak was destroying him every single time that year, but now we have a different Denis Shapovalov. 2020 was a third set tiebreak in the ATP Cup. And then earlier this year, again at the ATP Cup, it was a 7-5, 7-5. So the sets are close. Again, Shapo's got as much firepower off the ground as anyone on tour, no hyperbole. So what kind of problems does that pose to Djokovic? And also, why do you think Novak has yet to fall to the Canadian?
Well, I think Novak has been more consistent, and Denis is in the stage of his career where he's not just going this way, he's going this way, and he's making these rapid gains. And this was a big win, a big effort for him to beat Hachinov and get to the semis after being down 2-1. There's gonna be a lot of energy in this match. I mean, that Denis, he's like a fighter pilot, man. He just burning fuel left and right. So I'll just use this tennis adage: serves and nerves, because his serve can get a little yippy on him with the toss and the motion. And then if Novak starts to see that, like the dentist I've described him, that could be fatal. But in the meantime, it's going to be, I'm really excited to watch this match, because I think Shapovalov is in one of these stages where whoever he plays, it's exciting to watch.
I agree.
I think you guys are right that he's made leaps and bounds, because when I think of Shapovalov, I always think of just this incredibly flashy backhand where it's almost always he's almost always catching air. It's almost always the leaping one-hander, which is, you see that on the two-hander, but to see it on the one, it's just an incredibly flashy shot. And people keep telling me, no, he's shorted up. You got to sit down and really watch him this Wimbledon. He's really playing a lot smarter. So I'll be interested to see if Novak really tries to rally to the Shapovalov forehand or backhand more, because forehand is typically where you draw the errors, but with a one-hander, sometimes you flip that, and then the fact that he's a lefty makes it even more complicated.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really entertaining.
Okay.
There's a lot of rallies, a lot of different rallies. Yeah, I like your point about the backhand, how it's kind of this flashy shot, which then you wonder about the sustainability. And yet here he is in the Wimbledon semis, because you watch it, like I watched him play a bunch of times this year. He almost beat Nadal earlier this spring, and he keeps taking the cut, and he's fit and strong, and he's still in the blooming phase of his tennis career.
So I think we've both, you guys both pinpointed kind of the downfall of Shapo. Shot selection, consistency, those two things are married. I don't think there's a better test of shot selection and consistency in all of tennis, and patience, I'll throw in that word, it's a virtue, than playing Novak Djokovic. With his average depth of trade, if you are looking at every ball and thinking, oh, this is one I'm going to try to hit a winner on, your ball is going to fly all over the place because Novak doesn't give you a lot that's attackable, and you need to wait and wait and wait. And it's going to require patience to construct a point against Novak. And I think thus far, Shapo's getting better and better and better and more patient. But now we'll really see where the level is at with Denis's shot selection and consistency.
So maybe no one of our three more than Novak tests your maturity factor. I mean, Nadal tests some other factor that's the fighting, arduous, and Federer, it's almost as if you just have to play something and just play the ball and deal with the Roger Federer magic. So maybe Novak is the most, so many hits, so many deep balls, so many balls. No, you're not attacking. You got to stay in this rally too, buddy, until you get your chance. Right? And Denis is just like, he's ready to go. So you're right. That's going to be very interesting to see how he handles those kind of rallies.
Another thing I don't think we talk about with Novak enough is how little time he gives his opponents. And I think what's happened with Shapo throughout the tournament against Murray and RBA, just not very big hitters. And he's just had time, and he's looked incredible with that time. And then Khachanov was playing the ball earlier and hitting bigger. And now Shapo's in a dogfight. It's a totally different match. And then again, I think Novak's a level raise with how early and hard he takes the ball. So look out for that. You know, we look at Nadal as the player who hits harder, and maybe Federer to an even greater extent takes your time away. But you don't have a lot of time when you're playing Novak.
I don't think of Nadal as necessarily hitting the ball harder than Djokovic. I think he's got the RPMs. But as far as like through the court and the flat deep factor and
that's true.
The sustainable depth. I mean, Nadal is more a height and speed and spin. That's what makes the clay thing against Nadal so brutal. But for example, Novak moving through air and you're right, and having on you. I mean, I don't know. Federer does it in his whole different way. It's kind of that dissection. I think of these X's and Y's going across the court with Federer. With Novak, it has this more straight, seemingly linear, but not quite linear.
I just think with Shapo's longer strokes, like Amy, you're a one-handed backhand. How much does that shot change based on how much time you have to just, load it up and with your take back and all that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, and I would think especially on grass, it just becomes a slice. I mean, when the ball's hit to that wing, you have to make a quick decision, and it's a decision as a one-hander that isn't even always conscious decision. Like you don't think to yourself, I'm gonna hit slice. You just do. Or you don't think to yourself, I'm gonna drive this ball, or you don't think to yourself, okay, I'm really on the defense, so I'm gonna have to put a ton of air under it, and hit that shot. You just do. But the old Denis, I'd be really worried because he tends to be very aggressive with that shot. I'd be worried for him. But when I was just saying, like, how will Novak rally? Will he rally more to Shapovalov's forehand or his backhand? You said backhand. So I find that really interesting.
I'll tell you why. Yeah,
tell me.
The backhand needs time. It's not that his backhand is just going to miss randomly. It's not a gift, but if he doesn't have time on it, that's where it starts to miss. And the forehand is just a little bit more compact. It's still a big swing, but it's more compact.
Well, the forehand is also capable of hitting it down the line in ways in which the backhand down the line, he needs to be inside the court. The one-handed backhand, hitting a one-handed backhand from behind the baseline, driving it, is a tough thing. And he does, and to have that much time, if he had that much time, then he'd probably hit across court anyway. So the other thing with the one-hander, as having one myself, if you drive it back to someone who's a strong baseliner, it's not really clear what traction you're really gaining from that anyway. It's a shot that's maybe, 80% as good as a clean forehand. So what are you really accomplishing with it? And I think that's what's going to be the intrigue of this match, is how Denis, with his lefty backhand, they like to hit cross court all the time. What's he really accomplishing against Novak that way? That's what's interesting, how he's looking to construct rallies. I would love for someone like our mate Craig O'Shaughnessy to do kind of a map out of how a lefty with a one-handed backhand like this gets into Novak. Whereas if he was a lefty with a two-handed backhand, you think, I'm going to drive it down the line. I'm going to redirect. What's that going to be?
Well, he used to go down the line a lot more with the one-hander, and I think they got him to stop doing that because it was so inconsistent.
It also opens up the court more. I mean, unless you take a one-hand backhand, if you're inside the court and you can really, blister it down the line like Federer does sometimes, and Federer's swing much shorter than Denis, much more compact swing. That's one thing. But okay, so you're a lefty and you're trying to crack a one-hand backhand down the line in a world where everybody has a darn good two-hander, and then the guy can send you on the trolley to your back the other way. What are you doing? Go back cross court, and then if you go cross court and he brings the forehand vaguely cross court but not sharply cross court, you run around and you crack the lefty forehand.
100%. All right, let's end on what we are looking forward. One thing we're looking forward to in this match. So I'll give you time to think and I'll answer first. I love watching Novak, especially on this surface, against great offensive players such as Roger Federer. And I think Denis is like that, great offensive player, because I like watching him move and defend on grass. It's one of the most entertaining things in tennis, in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to watching Denis hit bombs and Novak trying to defend on the warning track, so to speak. Joel?
Go ahead.
I want to see Denis get his way to net a few times and see how that might go, because I've always wanted to see Novak, and we've seen it in limited occasions against Federer, Novak versus a net rusher. Again, I'm not saying Denis is going to become Patrick Rafter Jr. and come to net 30 times a set, but I just want to see Novak under attack volley pressure of sorts, whether it's from good approach shots or things like that, forced to have to come up with more passing shots. I want to see that happen just to see how it plays out.
I think Shapovalov is a guy who often takes sets off of great players, and he could take a set off of Novak. And he has a ton of energy, like Joel said, and Novak has a ton of energy. So I'm looking forward to the energy of the match. And if Shapo is able to get a set off of Novak, I'm looking forward to seeing how he will deal with that.
That's a great one. I agree. There's going to be an interesting feisty level of feistiness, I think, on the court. There's a good chance, at least. Certainly. Yeah, I think that's a good one. All right. So this was a crazy day for both Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic. Straight sets the opposite way, Novak to the semi. And Roger goes out in the quarterfinal to Hubert Hurkacz. So it is the Novak Djokovic show from now on. You can never guarantee that, though. These guys tend to always be around in their own ways. That'll do it for this episode of 3. Remember, we're available on all podcast platforms. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe. We'll see you next time on the next episode of 3.